Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's George coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be going into the initial configuration of a switch. So I have another video on this, but this one here is specifically aimed towards my Ccna course. So without further ado, let's get started. So in the last video, I went ahead and talked about how to actually connect to the switch with a console cable. So I'm not going to talk about that again, but go ahead and watch that last video if you didn't see it. Again, it's in the playlist. So here we are on the CLI, and it's asking us if we'd like to enter an initial configuration dialog. We're always going to say no to this. So here we are at user interface. Sorry about that. We're here at user mode. So to make changes, we want to go ahead and type enable. So now here we're in enable mode, and let's just go ahead and do a show run here and see what we have initially. So right here we have our version number, our host name, we have pretty much, of course, spanning tree enabled. We'll talk about that later. Pretty much a default configuration. We have a one VLAN with no IP addresses on them. All of the lines, the console line and the VTY lines, which are for Telnet and SSH, they have no config on them. So let me teach you another command here called show VLAN brief. And here we have 5 VLANs. Now these 4 here are actually default VLANs that come on every single switch. It's a standard that these VLANs will automatically be there, so they're unusable. So you cannot use these VLAN numbers. Now we have all of our interfaces, all of our ports assigned to VLAN 1. So that's the way it should be. So let's just say that you got a switch from somebody else and you went ahead and did this, and you saw a bunch of VLANs on there. The way you want to delete the VLAN database is by, first of all, you want to go ahead and show flash, and in the flash you will see a where is it? I actually don't see it in here. Let me make a change to the let me make VLAN 10 and VLAN 20 just to prove the example here. Show flash. There you go. So if we had VLANs pre-configured, you would have this VLAN.dat full file, and you want to go ahead and delete that. So you would type in delete VLAN or flash VLAN.dat. That's what you would do in order to completely wipe the config, or wipe the VLAN off of the switch. You also would want to do a write erase, and that would prompt you to go ahead and go through the erase, and it will completely pretty much make the switch completely as if you just got it from Cisco itself. So delete the VLAN database and then go ahead and write erase and reload the switch. I went ahead and pressed Q in order to quit from that reload. So once again, we're here in enable mode. So we want to go ahead and make some changes now. So first things first is we want to go ahead and set some passwords. Or actually, we want to go ahead and name the switch. So notice I just went into configure terminal. So I'm in configure global configuration mode. Here we want to type a simple command called hostname, and I want to call this switch SW1. So let's press enter, and notice how now it has changed the name of my switch. If we see the show run command, now this do command, all that does is, because I am not in the correct mode, it's going to go ahead and do this command from whatever mode it needs to do it from. So in this case, it would be enable mode, or yeah, in enable mode. So it's going to go ahead and do show run anyway. If I did that command without the do, it would give me a caret here saying that that's an invalid command. So let's go ahead and look at what I just did here. This is a show run command, and notice how the host name is now switch 1. So every time we make a change, we're making that change over to the running config. So the startup config is still the same. So if we do a show startup config, there is no startup config present right now. So in order to do that, let's type in end. There's two ways to do it. There's the old school way and the new way to do it, which I would recommend to learn. The old school way is just to type in write or write memory. They do the same thing. Or you could do copy running config to the startup config. Now the trick here is to never get this backwards. Always do start, run, copy, run, start. So you could type the whole thing like that by using tab completion, or you can just type in show run start or copy run start, and here it'll ask you if you want to keep the name default like this. So I just clicked press enter, because if you press enter it'll do whatever's in this bracket here. So enter, that's fine. It's going to build the configuration and it's done. So now we can actually see the startup config, and it pretty much just copy pasted the exact same thing over. So now we have a startup config. So if we actually reloaded the router at this point, we would come back to with our saved configuration. If we had not saved anything, then at that point we would have to start all over again. So make sure to save your work. So first things first is we're going to go ahead and set a password. To do that, go into configure terminal, and there's two ways to set a password. The old way is to do password, and then you can do password, enable, and then here we have two options, or four options, but the ones we're concerned with is password and secret. Now password, I'm not going to bother even using it anymore because password is clear text and unencrypted. So we're just going to go ahead and use enable secret, and then right here we have the option to just type the password in clear text. We can type in which would be the same thing as typing in an unencrypted password, or we can paste in an encrypted password. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and type in the password, and it's going to be Cisco. Now one thing you want to notice, if you do a show run, you do a show running config, you see the enable secret line, it automatically encrypted that password for me. So this, you could never really derive that I typed in Cisco just based off of that. So I press Q to go back to where I was. So now we have a password set for the enable. So what does that mean? So if we go ahead and exit and we go back to where we're over in user configuration, we go and type enable. Now it's going to ask us for that password that we typed in. So it won't let us go in without a password. So I'm going to go and type in Cisco, and that let me in. So that's what the enable secret does. So it's setting the password for enable mode. Next, we want to go ahead and set up a banner. That is so that when people come into the router or the switch, they see an actual message. Usually this is a statement of disclosure that this is private property, and then messing with it is a felony or whatever the case is. Usually that's what it says. I've seen people go kind of crazy with this. You want to keep it nice, simple, concise, so it doesn't take up too much space and it isn't just annoying. So to do that, we go and type in banner. We have a couple of options. we want to do the MOTD, or the message of the day banner. It's typically what most people do. Message of the day. Then here we have an interesting little help. It says C banner text C, where C is a delimiting character. So usually what delimiting character means is that when you type this character, that means that the banner is over. So usually I'll type in an asterisk or a it really doesn't matter what you type. Let's just type in a hash mark, and I press enter. So now this area is where you enter the text message. Some people do little stars like that, and they go, okay, do not enter, or something cheesy like that. And then, of course, you would want this to be professional if you're in a professional setting. But for this example, it's going to be very simple. Do not enter. So now, how do I get out of here? So it says right here, end with a character hashtag. So I'm going to go ahead and do the hashtag, and there you go. So that's how it looks like. So do show run. If you see the message of the day at the very bottom, you'll see this is what you're actually going to see. You're not actually going to see that caret C. So let's go ahead and end and exit. Let's press enter, and there we have our message of the day saying do not enter. So now we're going to enter. Of course I would type the password wrong. So there we go. So the next thing is to go ahead and set any IP addresses that we need to set. So in this case we have VLAN 1, and we want to get out of our network closets as soon as possible because it's absolutely cold or absolutely hot in that area. So we're going to go ahead and set up an IP address for this switch. So in order to do that, we need to set the interface VLAN address. So in this case we have VLAN 1. If you're in an enterprise environment, of course you're going to use some other VLAN, but in my case you're going to use a management VLAN, but we're just going to use the default VLAN 1. So this puts us in configure interface mode, or interface config mode. And here we can go ahead and type in IP address and set an IP address for this. So let's just go ahead and set up a very easy to remember address. Let's go ahead and do 10.1.1.1, and then after that, if you do a question mark, it says type in the subnet mask. Let's just make it a /24, which is like that. And then if you notice, the CR just means caret return. So you can go ahead and stop right there, and that'll set the IP address of that interface VLAN, which is pretty much just for you to manage this switch outside of the closet, or outside of the console port, I should say. So this would allow you to, well, it's a first step for allowing you to do telnet access to the switch. So now, at this point, you're still not ready to do telnet access because we need to configure the VTY lines. So let's go ahead and set up the VTY lines. So again, configure terminal, and then here we type in line VTY, and we have actually 16 VTY lines. So 0 all the way to 15, that's 16 in total. Usually we configure the first 5. At least that's the way it is in a lot of the Cisco books, but for sake of just being different, I'm going to go and configure all of the VTY lines together, 0 through 15. So that here is going to bring us up with configure line. Here's a bunch of commands that we can run. So now here, there's only a couple of commands that we need to run. let's go ahead and do this. Log in is the first command that we want to use. And notice how this says login disabled on line 1 to 16 until a password is set. So we want to go ahead and set up a password. So okay, let's go ahead and set up a password, and let's call it whatever, Cisco again. So now the line is actually enabled at this point. So if we do that command again, login, it won't give us this command anymore. It was not necessary to do this command again. It will actually work at this point. So if we were to get on a computer that's on the same subnet as 10.1.1.1, let's just say we're on a PC that's 10.1.1.50, we could go ahead and use secure CRT or PuTTY to go ahead and telnet into the switch at this point. Now, one thing that I want to mention about this particular password, here's actually a pretty cool little thing that I can show you. Now, I mentioned this before about this whole logging synchronous problem. We can go ahead and fix that. Now, right now we're on the console, so let's go ahead and modify line console 0, and we can do a command called logging synchronous. And what that command does, it allows you to go ahead and skip the line without your text being interrupted. So you know what, let's go ahead and do that for the VTY lines as well. So let's go ahead and do an logging synchronous. And then I want to also do one other thing. I want to teach you guys about the exec timeout. Now the exec timeout pretty much tells you when are you going to be kicked off of your session. So let's just say we want it to be 30 minutes and 0 seconds. So this will allow a user to be telnetted to this device for 30 minutes and 0 seconds, as long as I mean, they can work on it for as long as they want, as long as they're working on it. But if they're idle for 30 minutes, they're going to be kicked out. So let's go ahead and go and see that configuration. So let's scroll all the way to the bottom, and let's see line VTY 0 to 4 and 5 through 15. It's going to be the same thing. Now we have exec timeout 30 minutes, password Cisco, clear text, ladies and gentlemen, clear text. So we don't want this to be on our running config. It's a potential security problem, especially if it's the same password as your enable password. We're enabling login, and we're doing a logging synchronous just for the console to be less annoying. So let's go ahead and figure out that password problem. So now there's a nifty little tool, or service in this case, called service password encryption. And if you run that command, and if you go ahead and go back to the line section, let me go ahead and go back to the line in a nifty little way. Let's do a show run, but let's go ahead and begin wherever it says VTY. This will go through the running config and begin at the line, the first line that starts with VTY, so I don't have to scroll all the way down. Nifty, huh? So I know that this stuff is at the very end of the configuration, so I went ahead and run begin. There's also append, exclude, include, section. Pretty cool stuff that you can go through and just filter. So here you go. So now that we have password, we see that it's encrypted with password 7. So now this is a neat little thing, because now if somebody's just looking over your shoulder, they won't be able to, just figure it out just like that. Now there's a bunch of little tools out there, and I'm going to go and show you one. This one here is called Decrypt Cisco type 7 passwords. Very simple. I just did a Google search. If I copy that and I paste that in and I submit, it tells me my password is Cisco. So this isn't super secure, but it's better than nothing. If somebody's just looking over the shoulder, they won't be able to figure out that this is Cisco, unless they have a supersonic brain that I definitely don't have. So at this point, your switch is pretty much ready for basic management. So from here, you can go ahead and configure, the default gateways and all that, which is usually what you one of the first things that you want to do on a switch once you get it up and going with management and all that. But we're going to be leaving all of that stuff for our future videos when we go into switching. But essentially, what the default gateway is doing is pretty much pointing up to a router where you're going to be pretty much just getting out of the network. Because that's really all a gateway is just a gateway outside of your network. So if, for instance, I might as well show you. Default gateway. I believe it's IP default gateway. IP default gateway. If our default gateway was 10.1.1.100, then we would just type it in, and so now this device could actually get out to whatever networks are on the other side of that gateway. So if it was the internet, we can get out to Google 8.8.8.8 or whatever the case is. So another command that we want to run is more just for management purposes again, is the no IP domain name lookup. No domain lookup. Oh, how was this command written out? IP domain lookup, just like that. So this command pretty much allows you to, if you do a typo, do a typo here in enable mode, it's going to think that this is a domain name. So it's going to try to translate that domain name over to an IP address. And that's going to, hold you for a second. So it's going to say, oh, I'm trying to translate this over to the domain server, hold on. And it's not going to let you do anything. Even if you type in, I believe even if you do a Control-Shift-6, it still does not allow you to get out of it. So now what Control-Shift-6 does is if you're in the middle of a ping and for some reason the ping isn't working, so if I type in ping 1.1.1.1, we're not going to get anywhere. So how do you actually escape from something like this? You hold down Control-Shift-6 and you press it, and that will let you out of whatever it is that you're stuck in. So in case you ever do something like that, now you know how to get out. Control-Shift-6. Don't ask me why. It is that way because it is. So let's go back to that command we were talking about. No IP domain lookup. So now if we type in something by accident, it says nope, don't know what that is, so forget it, and it lets you go right back to work. So again, that's just another management sort of thing that I like to do. So now let's talk a little bit about usernames. So we can create users relatively easy on any device. So let's go ahead and do this username under configure terminal, and I'm going to call this George. And here we have a bunch of other things here. We can go ahead and create a secret, but what I want to do is something called privilege. Now this here sets my privilege level. Privilege level 15 means that you will automatically be entered into enable mode when you log in. So this will save you from having to type in the enable password. So this is up to you if you want to do this, or you can just create a username with a password. So that was just more for your own knowledge, but let's go ahead and create a username with Cisco as a secret. But pretty much right now it's not being used for anything. So if we want it to be used, we can type line VTY 0 through 15, and we can go back to the login. But if we type question mark, there's a local option, and all local means is that it's going to check the local database. Sounds all fancy, huh? But no, trust me, this is just a little database. It's a little field that says username is George and secret is Cisco. It's going to refer to this switch's database, user database, and see if the username and password is correct. So if we type that in, we won't have any issues anymore. So now, for sake of example, since we're on a console line right now, let's go ahead and do that on the line console as well. So line console 0, let's go ahead and do login local. I'm going to end, and I'm going to go into exit. So now I exit, and now notice how it's asking me for a username. So it's no longer just throwing me on the user mode. It's asking me for a username, and I'm going to type in George and type in Cisco, and there I am. And now it's going to ask me for the enable password. So I'm typing Cisco again, and now I'm in enable mode. If I go back to my username George, and I want to go ahead and set a privilege level of 15, and then keep the secret Cisco. Again, secret means that this is going to enter encrypted into the running config. So now if I keep it in mind that I'm privilege level 15, if I exit, now again it's going to ask me for the username, type it in, and notice that, see, it threw me directly into enable mode without asking me for the enable password. So this has been pretty much just a video of how to initially configure your switch for basic management through Telnet, doing some basic stuff. Now the last thing that I want to remind you to not forget to do is, of course, to do a copy, run, start. So it copies your running config, which is volatile memory, which means if you unplug your switch, the running config will completely be wiped out. The startup config is non-volatile, which means that it stays in memory or in flash. So let's copy the running config to the startup config. The name is fine. You normally do not want to change that name. I've never seen a case where anybody would change that name because it could interfere with some other things, but we won't talk about that now. So we got that created, and now we should be able to go ahead and reboot the switch and take it wherever we need to take it, or we can go back to our comfy desks or wherever we work and get back to work and take care of all the other little things that we're going to talk about in the next couple of videos. So I'm really excited. Thank you all for watching this video. If you liked it and found it informative, give me a thumbs up and watch the rest of my Ccna course. It is absolutely free here on YouTube. Hope you all are having a great day, and we'll see you all next time.